Hello, my name is Matthew Randall, and in this tutorial we're going to look at something called gizmos in Nuke. What gizmos allow us to do is actually take a group of nodes that give us a set of functionality. In this case, we've got a group of nodes here which is taking two images, HDRI images of a chrome ball taken 90 degrees apart in the same position, okay, and then combining those to actually produce a 360 degree image that we can then use as an environmental light within the Nuke composite or within Maya, okay. But what we're going to do is use gizmos to take all this functionality that's doing that for us and put that into a single reusable node. Okay, and effectively to do that, what it's going to do is we're going to group this functionality. We're going to group this functionality. We're going to group all these nodes together into a single node, and then what we're going to do is expose certain parameters. So obviously each of these nodes have different parameters. We don't need to be able to adjust all of these parameters whenever we bring in different images to combine to create a 360 degree environmental light. We only need to use certain parameters. So what we're going to do is use gizmos to group all this into a single node and then expose just the controls that we need in order to combine these two images, to have the control to combine these two images in the way that we want. Okay, so before we continue, what I'm going to do is just talk through what this particular the actual node graph that we're looking at here, or that we're working with in this example, is doing, so you can better understand what we're actually trying to do. So first of all, what I'm doing is I'm taking two chrome ball shots here. There's a chrome ball shot B. This is B, and this is chrome ball shot A. Okay, and then what we're doing is we're doing something called a spherical transform. And all that's doing is taking this actual the image that we're interested in, which is in this sort of circle here inside the chrome ball, and flattening that out. Okay, so here, there we go. It flattens that out, and then so that's image A flattened out, and then image B flattened out. You can see here we've got image B flattened out, okay? And what also the spherical transform does is actually allows us to align these two images on top of each other. So if I actually just set this back, I'm just going to restore this to what we would have originally got, and then I'm just going to actually connect this rather than going through the roto and the premult, which I'll talk you through in a moment. I'm just literally going to connect these both together and have a look at the output. Okay, so we just layer these both on top of each other. You can see we've got two 360 images, but they're not actually aligned with each other. You can see the table isn't actually aligning with each other, and what we need to do is rotate one of the images to kind of make it align with the other image. You can see how this sort of black area at the back there is aligning with the other image. So we need to rotate one of these to align with the other image. Okay, so we need to expose some of these alignment controls in order to allow us to do that. Okay, the other thing that we're doing as well, this spherical transform is doing, is it's outputting this image into obviously a 2D. It's outputting a 2D image, and we can choose the size of that image with this output format. So in this case, I've just chose it as HDR long 2046. You'll notice that this isn't actually a default value, so when you come to do yours, you will have to go new, unless obviously you're working with the demo that I've uploaded with this tutorial. But that's not a default value. To create that, just go new, and then you can kind of enter the details of that value there, and it will pop up in your drop down menu. Okay, but obviously both spherical transforms, they've got slightly different adjustments to align them with each other, but they're both going to be using the same output format. Okay, great. In order to align them with each other, we kind of need to have this view here, so that they're just over the top of each other. But the final output, what we want to do with the final output is actually merge, rather than merging from this point here. What we want to do is merge from here, so that we can actually roto out some of one image over the top of each other. I'll explain that just in a bit more detail. So if we look at the two images separately, so I've just sort of roughly aligned them now, but if we look at the two images separately, Okay, so that's image A, and then this is image B. You'll see that in both images, there's you can see me, and then there's a bit of distortion. So there's me there and a bit of distortion there, and then in image A, you can see there's me there, and then there's some distortion at either edge here. Okay, so what we want to do is actually, what we're going to do is take image A and then take take image B, and then what we want to do is take bits of image A to kind of cover up. So if we look at image B, we're going to take image B, that's this image, okay, that we're seeing here, and then use bits of image A to cover up these areas. Okay, so we do that by using an alpha. So you'll see in here, all I've done is add a rotoscope. All I've done is rotoscoped in, or selected an area that is creating an alpha mask for us, just using a roto node. Okay, we can look at that in more detail. So I'll show you this roto node. So I'm just going to show you that. There you go. So that's our alpha. So these are the bits of image A where you see red. That's going to be image A, covering up bits of to patch over bits of image B. Okay. So let's just go out of that mode. RGB alpha, and then what I'm going to do is, so you can see we've put our roto there. Then we need to pre-multiply it, because we always need to pre-multiply our image before merging. Okay, and then once we've done that, if I take that pre-multiplied image and put it into here and look at the output, you'll see that what we have is image B, okay, this image here, patched over with bits of image A, and you get a sort of completed result. This is obviously looking a bit messier than what we originally had, because I've obviously damaged the alignment somewhat by showing the alignment earlier on. Okay, now just let's have a look at, and then obviously the final functionality we have is this blur. Where's this blur? Here we go. That we can actually apply a blur to the entire result as well. Okay. Depending on what our needs are. So typically with a reflection, you don't want a huge amount of detail, and if you have it too detailed, you've got all this sort of brush on the chrome ball anyway, so we can just we want to just blur all that out. Okay, so just do a recap then. What we want to be able to do is be able to actually align the spherical transforms. Okay, we want to be able to decide on the aspect ratio, or the format of the output of the image transform here, and then what we want to be able to do is actually apply a blur to it as well. And then what we might need to do is be able to see either the merged in this way. Let me just turn the blur down for you so that we can see that. Sorry. So you want to see them either merged. You want to see the images merged this way so that we can align them, and then we want to obviously see it this way for the final result. Okay, so that's the functionality that we want. If I go into my other example here, what you'll see is I've actually used this Gizmo approach already to create this node called HDRI. Okay, I'm just going to click on that for you so you can see the results, and you can see here we have our blur control exposed. So yeah. Okay, and it's exactly the same set of nodes that I've worked with a little bit of adjustment, which I'll talk you through in a moment. Here's our HDRI blur. Our blur. Here's our image format. We can select that, and that will change it for both spherical transforms in one place. And then here I can actually click on this to kind of show the alignment. So I can kind of expose the two over the top of each other to show the alignment. Okay, and notice how I've got image A, image B, so that's image A, image B, and then a mask for image A to decide what parts of image A we're using to patch over image B. Okay, and then here's the alignment of both images. Okay, so I can use that to change the alignment of both images. You can see if I change the alignment, you can see there, and obviously you can see where our patches have gone in as well from this roto here. Okay, so let me talk you through then how we how we take this and create a gizmo. So I'm going to kill all of these properties and get started. So before we actually group things together, what we need to do is just think about how the structure of this is going to work inside a gizmo. Now all of this is going to be fine. The only problem we're going to have is with this roto here, because at the moment this roto is kind of introduced sort of in line, if you will. So imagine the image is going through these nodes here, through this line of nodes here, and that's great. But actually what we need to do is set this up so rather than it sort of being introduced in line, this can actually be a separate input to our gizmo. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just break the connection here and sort of move the alpha here, and then what I'm going to do is bring this alpha in using a shuffle copy node. So I'm just going to go shuffle copy, and all the shuffle copy node it does, if we look at the actual properties here, what the shuffle copy node does is it takes the red, green and blue from channel 2, that's this input here, okay, so we want the red, green and blue from here, and then combines it with the alpha from another image which is coming into input 1. So you can see here we've got input 1, I'm going to connect that to there, okay, and then obviously just reroute this pre-mult to here. Okay, so now all we've done is a very simple adjustment, but that just means that we've now what we've got to this set of nodes is 3 separate inputs that we can then obviously have going into our gizmo. Okay, the other thing as well is obviously we're not going to use a write. That was for something else that I was doing, to write it out and use it in Maya, and I'm just going to adjust this down here. Okay, great. So now what we do, now we're ready to actually kind of start creating our gizmo. So what I'm going to do to create the gizmo, all I need to do is select. Okay, so first of all I need to group the nodes. So I just select all the nodes, and I'll just go group, and it'll ask me what I want as its output. I want the blur 1 as the output, and you can see that's the bottommost one. That was the output that we were using. So I'm going to select blur 1 as the output node, okay, and you can see that what's happened is all those nodes have disappeared and they've just inside a group here. Okay, we can still see that if I click on node 1 graph, you can see here we are, they're actually there in that group. Okay, so they haven't disappeared, they are available to us. Okay, I'm just going to tidy this up and just put input 2 over here. Okay, so this is all sort of tidied up, brilliant. Okay, great. Okay, so here we have group 1. So all of these nodes, so it's created a new tab for us called group 1 node. All these nodes are inside of here. Okay, and you can see how the 3 inputs, the 2 images and the mask, okay, are coming into these 3 inputs here. Okay, and then you've got the output, okay, which is obviously just the output from here going into our viewer. Great. Okay, what we want to do is I'll just show you how to very simply expose a control. So let's just go for a very simple control here. So I'm just going to go for the blur control. Okay, so here we've got the blur control. What we want to do is we want to make this reusable. So rather than having to go into this node here and access the blur control and adjust the blur here, what we want to do is actually expose this control at a group level rather than having to go into the group. So what we can do is, if I go back to our node graph with the group, so now what I'm doing is just looking at the properties of this group here. If I just go right click, manage user knobs, what that allows us to do is to create a custom set of knobs to control the parameters of the nodes within this group. And if I click pick, I can actually just see all the nodes that are in that group. So I want to access the blur node, and then what I can do is go into the actual blur node itself and pick out the parameter I want to adjust. In this case, it's size. I want to expose that control. So if I click OK, all right, what you'll see now is the group nodes changed. Okay, so I'm just going to close this. The group nodes changed from this sort of generic set of node options that we saw before to now sort of a user-defined set of options here. And here we have the actual blur control. So the blur control is exposed at this level. Okay, and you'll see they're actually connected. If I open up the actual, go into the group node itself, so I'm going to click on this tab, go into the group node itself, you'll see that as I adjust one, yeah, the other adjusts. They are linked, okay, together. Okay. Okay, so now what I want to do is start kind of putting in more functionality and and polishing this up. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at these inputs. These inputs, input 2, 1, 3. A, they're not in order, but B, they don't really tell the user much in terms of what they're going to do. If you imagine the user's going to see this and all they're seeing is literally 1, 2, 3. It's not telling them a whole lot, okay? So what we want to do is go into the node graph here, okay? The actual group node graph here. And I'm going to click on input 2 and I'm just going to put a label in there. So this is going to be the mask, and I'll call it mask A. All right. In fact, I don't think that makes a lot of difference. I think what we want to actually do is go mask A. All right. So if I change that now, let's look at the group level. Can you see it's changed this label here to mask A? So this is much more useful to the user when they go to reuse this gizmo. Okay. So we'll do the same here. So I'm going to look at input 1. Okay, and that's our image A. Unfortunately, I can't put spaces in there. So if I try and put space in there, it kind of automatically puts an underline in there for me. I'm going to go into, so now I've just gone into input 3. I'm just going to change the label of input 3 to image B. Okay, and so now if we look at the node graph, you can see I've got mask A, image B. So that's going to make a lot more sense to the user when they're actually reusing this this node. Okay, excellent. Right. Okay. Next thing we want to do then is next thing we want to do is expose the actual. So I'm back into the actual node graph. The group node graph, okay, view with this tab here. I'm just going to kill these properties because there's a lot of properties exposed here. What I want to do is expose these. So what I want to do is expose these alignment controls here for both image A and image B. Okay, and what I want to do is create a separate tab for those alignment controls. So in order to do that, I want to go back into my main node graph here, click on group 1 so I can see the group 1 properties, and again go right click and go manage user knobs. Okay, and this actually what I can do in here is actually if I edit this is actually the tab here, user, so I can edit this and change this to I'll just call it HDRI. Okay, let's click on that, go done. In fact, that wasn't quite the result I was after. Let's just try again, manage user knobs, click on that, go edit. I need to change the label to HDRI, click OK, and you'll see that it changes this tab here to HDRI. Okay, well what I want to do is create another tab in this group for my align controls, so my alignment controls. So I'm just going to go edit, add, and I'm going to go add tab. Okay, and I'm going to call this alignment image underscore align because the name needs to have no space, but I can put a space in the label here, so I can go image alignment. Okay. Click OK, and you'll see here we've got another tab called image alignment here. So what's happened then is we've got, if I just close this for a moment, I've got an empty tab called HDRI. I've got a tab here with align images in with the blur control in there. I actually want this blur control to be inside the HDRI tab here, so I'm just going to go manage user knobs. Okay, and what if I just move this down? You'll see that this blur control's moved from here, and it's actually moved. I can't show you it because I've got this view open here, but it's moved from here, from this tab into this tab. So you can see that basically we've got the tab name, any controls that we want go below that, and then here's my other tab, and any controls I want in here go below this into this tab here. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do, I want to add in these alignment controls. So I'm going to click pick. Okay, and I'm just going to go Spherical Transform 1, Spherical Transform, and it's the output rotations that I'm interested in. Okay, so I'm just going to click these output rotations and go OK. And so you can see that we've got all of those available in there as well. Okay. Now what I might want to do is actually make this a little bit more usable and actually add some text into here and just go line image A. Okay, so I'm just going to, and I'll just call that image A. So notice you have to give something a name. That's a unique name so that we can actually work with it later. So it has to have a unique name, but obviously this label is what the user will see. Align. So I'm going to go image A alignment. Okay. Click OK. So that's our text there. And actually, what I want to do is move that up. Okay, so you can see it's kind of neatening things up here. I've got my image A alignment, okay, and then what I'm going to do is go add. So these are like custom controls that we can add. I'm going to add in another piece of text, okay, and I'm going to go image line B. I can't remember what I called the previous one. Image, but I'm going to call this image B alignment to match this, okay. Click OK. You can see it's inputted it in the wrong place. That's so I just want to move that down. In fact, it's better just to highlight the correct place. So you should just insert it just below. If you add any new controls, it should just insert it just below whatever control you've got inserted here. But you can reorder them by just pressing the up and down, highlighting it and going up and down. So I'm going to select this, and what I want to do is add the alignment controls for Spherical Transform 2, which is for image B. So I'm going to pick Spherical Transform 2, Spherical Transform, and then obviously the output alignment controls. Okay, and you can see here we are. So you can see we're kind of developing a nice sort of control interface here. Okay, and I'm going to click Done. So there we are. That's our HDRI blur, and then here are our alignment controls. And I can just show you that obviously if I move that, obviously it is breaking this image somewhat, but for the purpose of what I'm trying to do is just try to demonstrate it is working. You can see that is working. Okay, great. So now what I want to do is I want to have a look at this sort of the main sort of HDRI tab here. The word size isn't that useful. So first thing I'm going to do is go to Manage User Knobs and actually go into and edit this size parameter here and just change the label to blur. Okay. Just so that we can see, or I might even actually edit it and change it to blur size. So you can see that is the blur that we're applying it to as well. Now what I'd like to do is, again, if we look at the Spherical Transform node that we use, that's inside our gizmo that we're creating, one of the things I want to do is be able to select the output. Now, obviously we've got two Spherical Transform nodes, and what I want to do is be able to have it so that if we select the output, if I change this value, what I want to do is expose this control here. But also, what I want to do is I only want to have one control here that changes this value for both Spherical Transform nodes that's inside our graph. So just to show you here, I've got two Spherical Transform nodes, and what I want to do is actually have them follow the same output format parameter. Okay, and this is quite a common requirement that you might have if you've got lots of nodes repeating and you want them to be driven by the same value. Okay, so again, I'm going to go into all I'm going to do first of all is actually take this output format from Spherical Transform 1 and expose that control. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. So I'm going to go into, I want to put it in the HDRI tab. I kind of want to put it above the blur size because the blur is kind of like an after thing if we think about it in the workflow. So I'm going to keep the blur at the bottom, okay? And I'm just going to go HDRI, and I'm going to go, so I'm just going to add it just below as the top thing in the HDRI tab here. So I'm going to go pick Spherical Transform 1, Spherical Transform, and it's the output format that I'm interested in. So here we are. I've selected that, and you'll see in here we have the output transform that we can select. Okay, and that will only affect, the problem is that will only affect Spherical Transform 1, and we want it to affect both 1 and 2. Okay, well, if I go to, so here, the properties for Spherical Transform 2 are actually here, are actually exposed here. If you don't have them, obviously just double click and you can see them. But here we've got the properties for Spherical Transform 2. And effectively what I want is this property to match whatever's in the equivalent property in Spherical Transform 1. All I've got to do is simply click on, if I go right click on this, in fact, actually what I'm going to do is click the equals sign and go set link, okay, and this is going to allow us to write an expression, okay, and what I'm going to do for this expression is I'm going to go Spherical Transform 1 dot format. Okay, so you can see what's actually happening here is, so this is the Spherical Transform 2 format parameter, and all I'm doing is literally typing in the name of this node, which happens to be Spherical Transform 1. If you rename this node, then obviously you need to type that name in rather than Spherical Transform 1. So I'm typing the name of the node to actually identify the node that we want to copy the property of, and then obviously I'm going dot and then saying what the name of that property is, which happens to be format. Okay, now I know it's called format, so if I just click OK for a moment, I know it's called format because I'm trying to remember how I did that, because if I go into the manage user knobs and go into the actual output format of Spherical Transform 1 here and go edit, you can see that the name is format. So that's why I know it's called format. Okay, great. Now that expression has actually created this funny little arrow here, and all that arrow is really saying is that there's parameters here which are linked to parameters there. Okay, so what you'll find then is if I go, I'm just going to open up the properties for Spherical Transform 1. Okay, here we go. I'm just going to reorder this, and then just going to click on the group. Okay, so here I've got the group property. If I can just try and get this into the same sort of window, slightly struggling with my windows here. I'm wondering if I can just, all I want to do is just drag this. Okay, in fact what I'm going to do is, you don't need to do this. What I'm going to do is simply drag this group object out and then just click on Spherical Transform 1 again, or Spherical Transform 2. Okay, so sorry about that. So all I was doing was just trying to reorder these parameter windows, panels, so that we could see everything that's going on. So here's our group node, here's our group parameters, and then here's the parameters for Spherical Transform 2, Spherical Transform 1, and what you'll see is this is grayed out in Spherical Transform 2. So what it's saying is I've got no control over this anymore in here because it's being controlled by something else. Okay, so I click on it, nothing happens. If I change this now, so let's just change this to square, for example, just picking any value, you'll see that it's changed it here, but it's also changed it here. It's changed it in both nodes. So they're now linked together and they're both following that. Okay. Obviously I want to switch that back to HDR long. Click close, and again if I go back to our main graph and click on the group so I can see that, all I want to do is click on manage user knobs, and finally what I can do is just edit this just to kind of give it a better format. Output format and better name. Output format is fine. I just might just do that. Click OK. Now what I want to do is be able to switch. Okay, so if I close this, what I want to be able to do is switch between this view that we're seeing here and then this view that we see when we bypass the roto. Okay, so I want to be able to switch between these two views to allow the user to be able to align the images when they're using it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create I'm going back in this. So within the group, I'm going to add a new merge node just by pressing M. Connect the A to the image A, B to image B. Okay, and again. probably bypass the blur here. And then what I want to do is, in order to put these two in here, I'm going to use something called to connect both of these outputs. So this is our preview image, yeah, okay, for aligning, and then this is our final output. Okay, to switch between the two, I'm going to put in a switch node. So it's quite a useful function to have when you're creating these sort of gizmos. So here we are. I've got my switch node here. Okay, and I'm just going to go to output. And what you'll see now is if I change this switch node to 1, I get the final output, and if I switch it to 0, I get the sorry, if I switch it to 0, if I switch it to 0, I get the preview. Okay. What I want to do is control that at a group level. So I want to control that inside our group properties here with a checkbox. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kill this merge node that we've created, so that we've got just the switch node and the group node that we're working on. I'm going to go right click, manage user knobs, and what I want to do is I think right at the top, in fact just under here, I want to put in a checkbox. Okay, so I'm going to use a checkbox, and the checkbox is going to turn this switch on and off for us. So I'm going to checkbox, give it a name. I'll just call sorry, I'll just call it alignment. I'll just call it alignment view. Okay, and then I'm going to give it a label, alignment space view. Okay, so we've got this new checkbox actually I can switch on and off called alignment view, but obviously that's not doing anything yet because that's not connected to the switch. Okay, so what we need to do is connect this switch to this checkbox. So what we do is we go into in fact, I'm just going to quickly go into manage user knobs. One of the things I've found when I use this technique, I'm just going to quickly edit this. If you give it a label, it seems to get confused. What I want to do is write an expression in switch 1 so that for this parameter in switch 1, so that it's actually driven by whatever this condition this checkbox is in, i.e. on or off. Okay, that's what I want to do. In setting up that expression, what I've found is the expression gets a bit confused if you give things a separate label name. So what I'm going to do just initially, I'm just going to call it align. I'm just going to literally give it the name align and go OK. So keep this really, really simple. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this. I'm going to delete that knob. Okay, press yes. I'm going to create a new one. Okay. So I'm just going to go again, checkbox again. I'm just going to call that align. Okay, click OK, and you'll see there's a line there, and there's no label. It has no label to it. Okay, and what I find is as soon as you put a label in, the expression gets confused. You can fix it later, but when you're initially creating that expression, it seems to struggle with a link. I don't know whether that's a bug in Nuke or whether I'm doing something wrong. So what I tend to do is when I'm doing this sort of thing, I just tend to leave the label for the moment. Then what we want to do is go into our expression. Okay, so turn this off, go into our expression, and then just go okay, I want to go sorry, add expression. Okay, and then what I want to do is go to get to that checkpoint. The checkbox is at the parent level, so it's actually at a node that is hierarchically the parent of. So you imagine the group node is the parent of all of these nodes. So what we want to do is drive this switch node from its parent node, which is the group node. Okay, so I can't just go group. Does that make sense? Okay, to go to the group node, I need to go parent. Okay, and its parent is the group node. Then what I'll do is I'll go align. So it's just going to use that align result. And you can see it's gone result 0. So it's already telling you what the align is giving us, what the align result is. Okay, it doesn't update live, but it's telling us what that result is. So if I click OK, now you'll see that when I change this, can you see it's changing the switch. Okay, and it's switching between the two views now. And it's switching between this view, this input, or this input. Again, this is a very useful technique to use for creating gizmos. So we've got that one and we've got that one. Okay. I think the only thing I've got now is obviously I actually want it to be the opposite. So when I click a line, I want to see this view, and when a line's off, I want to see that view. So all I need to do is go into edit expression, and to invert this, if I just go not, it just means that when the switch is 0, it'll be 1, and when it's 1, it'll be 0. It just inverts it. So if I click OK, you'll see now when I click the align and that's on, I see the alignment view. When I click the alignment off, I now see the final result that I want. Okay, great. Okay, so that is basically our tool done. The only thing I want to do is go into manage user knobs, and also I'm not very happy with this align label here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go edit, and I'm going to write in so I'm going to write in my new owner label here. So I'm just going to go align 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 alignment view. Okay, so I'm just going to go alignment view here. Okay, click OK, and you'll see that this is called alignment view now. All right, and I can switch that on and off. Okay, so that is now my gizmo complete, and now what I want to do is actually kind of save out this gizmo and reuse it. So at the moment, all we've got here is a group, and one of the things I wanted to show you actually, if you're working on a group, just before I show you how to make this into a gizmo. If you're working on a group, let's say we save this. I'm going to go File, Save Comp As, and I'm just going to go and save it into a folder. So I'll just call this. I'm just going to call this Demo. Okay, let's save this as Demo. Okay, now if I close this, what I'm going to do is just go into my folder and reopen this. So I'm just going to go into, I'm just trying to think if I've actually got data techniques. There we go. So this is the demo that I've just created. If I open that up, so imagine you're working on your gizmo. You haven't made it a gizmo yet, but you're working on it. You reopen it. You've got your group here. That's fine. But what you're missing is this tab to actually view the group. Okay. Very simple to solve this problem. All you need to do is click this S. Okay. If you click the S, you'll see that this tab is suddenly revealed. Okay. And you've got a group again. Okay. And you can see your group again. Okay. Now, in order to let's just see if this is working. Sorry. Yes, it is. Great. Okay. So in order to actually export this as a gizmo, select your group, and then in the Node tab here, what you can do is just go Export as Gizmo. So you go Export as Gizmo, and what you want to do is basically save the gizmo into your users folder. Okay. So I'm going to go and I'm going to go into current. Actually, I want to go to my C drive, so I'm going to go C drive. Oh, hang on. Sorry, let me just try again. Save as Gizmo. Okay. Root. Hang on. There you go. So I go to my C drive, and what I want to do is I want to save the gizmo into the Nuke folder inside my users. Inside my user data area. Okay, and so it should be inside the users folder. Whether it's a Mac or a PC, you should have a users folder that you can put this stuff into. Okay, so I'm on a PC, so I'm going C drive users. Okay, Mat. Oh, hang on, back up into the Nuke folder. And the reason for that is because this is where Nuke looks for plugins. Okay, so effectively what we're doing is we're creating a plugin here. Let me just pop up because I'm slightly lost myself here. Yeah, Matt. Nuke. Okay, just a slight complication with this. It's slightly buggy here. One of the things you can do is just save the gizmo anywhere and then just copy it into this folder. Here's the folder I want to actually save it into. It's this C drive users Matt Nuke, okay? And it'll be a sort of similar thing on your Macintosh, okay? But effectively it's in my users folder. So at the moment I can get, when I'm saving my gizmo, I'm in the Matt folder here, but I can't see the .nuke folder, okay? Now, I can see it if I put in dot. So it's a little bit clunky, but if I don't put it in, you can see I scroll up and down and I can't find it. It won't, for some reason, it won't automatically expose that to you. If I go dot, I can go in here. Again, if that causes you confusion, you can just save it anywhere and then just copy it into that folder later on. So I'm into the .nuke folder, and then I can save it as whatever I want. So I'll just call it, I don't know, Enviro Light. Just going to call it environment light. In fact, actually, sorry, there's already a node called environment light. I'll just call it HDRI light underscore light. Okay, so this allows us to create like a HDRI light. Okay, in fact, yeah, I don't know, HDRI. I'll just call it transform. I'll call it that for want of a better name. Okay, so I'm going to save that. I'm going to save it as a gizmo. Great. So now I've done that. Let's see this in action. Okay, so you can see in here, if I go in here, I've got in my Nuke folder, there is my gizmo, HDRI Transform gizmo. Okay, I'm going to go File, New Comp. I'm going to create a new comp. Just give it a moment. Here we go. It's all running a bit slow. Come on, I'm sure we can go a bit quicker than this. I'll just pause it while I'm waiting. Okay, Nuke just actually sort of crashed on me there. So anyway, we started up with a new Nuke comp, and what we want to do is put in our, bring in our, our gizmo. Okay. Okay, I'm running in a slight problem here because I'm running on a lower resolution. What's happening is I can't actually open up all the views that I want here. Okay, but if I go, so what I want to do is basically go right click, file, sorry, right click, other. And then go all, we can, I think we can see it now, can't we? Other. Click, okay, we're fine. So if I go right click, other, and then go all plugins, and click update, that will then search all your plugins and see if there's any updates in there. And you'll see now, if I go right click, it's just doing it automatically for me now. Right click, other, plugins, and then go to H for HDRI. You'll see that I've got the HDRI transform node there. Okay, and I click on that and it creates this HDRI. Sorry if I just delete that for the moment. Sorry, I've got a rather an error there. Let's try again. It creates a HDRI transform node for me. Not entirely sure what that error is. It might just be because there's not an image in there and that's causing an error at the moment. Hopefully when we put an image in, that should solve the problem. But you can see there it is. And indeed, if I go, now that I've ran the update, I could just run the update node from here. And then what I could also do is go HDRI and open up the transform node there as well. Okay, just by clicking tab. Brilliant. Okay, so now what we want to do is connect this to some images. So if I go, so I'm just going to demonstrate how we can use this. So if I bring in a couple of images, so I'm just using my read node, bring in these two images. So that's going to be image A, and this is going to be image B. Okay, and then what we want to do is see the output of this. Create a viewer. Let's see the output of this. Okay, non-existent channel used for mask. I think that is purely because... let me just have a look at that. Okay, I've found where the error is coming from. If we go back to our original... so this is the nodes inside our Gizmo, okay? If we go to the original merge, that's this merge 1 over, you see that it requires a mask. We don't actually need this mask in order for it to work. So I just want to turn that off. Again, if I go back to the node graph, I think if I just go to 3, everything should work fine. Let's just test that. Alignment view. Yes. Okay. So all I've done is just make that one change there. I'm going to go and save this out. So I'm just going to go node, export Gizmo, and export it to the same place. So I'm already in that folder, so that's great. And I'll just call it HDRI Transform 2. Okay. Save. And then what I'm going to do is go back into our new composite that we were working on. I shall delete this node. And I'm just going to go tab, HDRI. Okay. So obviously the new transform isn't there yet, but if I just go tab, update, this is a bit odd. You run it, but it doesn't actually create a node. It just updates the plugins. And if I go tab again, HDRI transform. Oh, HDRI transform 2 is not there. Okay, that wasn't what I was expecting. Let's just try. Let's just check it is there. Yes, it is there. So maybe I need to go file, other. Let's just try that again. Other, all plugins, update, and then. So look here, transform. There it is. It's at the bottom there. HDRI transform 2. Okay, so I click on that. Hopefully now, if I go. HDRI, yeah, there we are. I've got transform 2. So maybe it was there all the time. I didn't spot it. But there we are. That's the one I want. Okay, HDRI transform 2. And you can see we don't have an error on it now. So that solved that problem. Okay, so image A goes into there. Image B goes into here. Here's our output. Okay, into our viewer. Let's just drag this down. Let's just rearrange this to make this all a little bit more sensible. So you can see what's going on. Great. Okay, and okay, so with this tool, what I want to do is I want to, so the moment, basically, there is no mask, so I'm just looking at image B here, okay, and what I want to do is just go into my alignment, and with image B in mind, and actually, another thing I want to do is actually, before I save this group as a gizmo, what I really needed to do was put some sensible parameters in there. So in fact, I'm going to go back again to HDRI, to the original groups here, to the original group nodes here. And I'm just going to go into my spherical transform and basically set all these back to 0. So we've got some sensible values here. Again, I'm going to do that with this one, back to 0. That's great. I'm happy with this being a default. Okay, so effectively what I'm doing is putting in default values. My blur, I don't really want that to be high. I probably want it to be 0 by default, so it's not applied, and then people can apply it if they need to. I think that I'm happy with. So I've put in some sensible defaults now. Back into my main graph, and then what I'm going to do is, again, save it. Export Gizmo as, this time I shall call it 3. Hopefully this will be the last one. Oh, hang on. Gizmo 3, save. Go back into here. And again, I'm just going to go, I should be able to just go update. And then I should be able to go HDRI transform. Where are you? Perhaps it needs a moment. Let's try again. HDRI transform 3. Brilliant. Bring that in. So now if I delete that, connect up my image A, image B, connect that to the output. Okay, great. Let's have a look. Great, okay. So we're starting off with our two images. This is image B, and then really what I want to do with image B, okay, if I just turn everything off but my group, what I want to do then is with image B, I want to kind of align that. I want to kind of straighten up this kind of swirl here. This floor should be flat. So what I want to try and do is kind of make it so the floor is flat here. So just adjusting these two values, so the RZ and RX values here, okay, just to kind of make the floor as flat as possible. I think actually I was doing better before. That final adjustment there. Okay, happy with that. So that's those values there. Okay, then what I want to do is click on, if I go into my HDRI tab and click the alignment view, you can see I've got the two copies there, and you can see that I don't know if you can see, but the green chair here in A isn't aligning with the green chair in B. So what I want to do is go back into my alignment and just use this RY to kind of get the alignment right. Can you see I'm going to move this green chair over the top of the green chair in B. So these two green chairs align over the top of each other. It might be easier to see it in terms of the lights. You can see that the lights are kind of aligning with each other. We still now need to tune these values to kind of make this sort of fit. And you can see that by tuning that, yeah, these are now aligning really nicely over the top of each other. Okay. If I go back into here now, into my alignment view, you can see there we are. That's image B. In fact, I kind of, yeah, okay. In fact, what I want to do is, what I want to do is actually have the alignment kind of the other way round. So what I might do is just swap these over. Great. But no, that hasn't really solved the problem. Yeah, okay, that's fine. So what I want to do then is I want to create a mask to mask myself out. So I've got image, if I go into here, yeah, I want to create a mask to mask myself out. So this, at the moment, what we're seeing in the final output, because we've not specified any mask, we've not specified any area where we want to see image A, all we're seeing is image B. And what we want to do is this area and myself here, I want to remove all of that from image B and put in what we have in image A over that area. So all I'm going to do is create a roto, place that into, put that as our mask, and then all I'm just going to do is simply draw around myself with that roto node, and you'll see that I suddenly disappear. Oh, I'll just do another roto here. And I could do another roto here, just because I've got sort of this distortion at the edge here, which I don't really want. Okay, and then if I just turn this roto node off, you'll see that I've got a nice, a fairly complete image. And in fact, if I just go to that roto node, I can easily just kind of soften, you know, feather this out a little bit, just to kind of make things a little bit nicer. Ooh, let's try that again. Yeah, something like that. And feather away. Okay. Just to make that integration a little bit better. Okay. And I could, you know, improve this perhaps with some color matching knobs as well, and I could really sort of develop this a little bit further. But I think for the idea of creating a gizmo, this is sort of taking things probably far enough in terms of what we need. Let's just move that out there a little bit. There we go. Don't really need that side of it anyway, do I? There we go. And finally, there we are. Okay, let's turn that off, see what result we've got. Okay, that's given us a really nice, simple environment, 360-degree environment light. And obviously, much easier to create this now that we've got this gizmo. We can easily kind of reuse it and do this action as many times as we want. So that is creating a gizmo in Nuke.